Paul Dennett in Sydney, Australia. I'm with Patrick Avenel.
Hi, Paul.
And this is the first episode of Bat and Ball with Pat and Paul. In this episode, we're going to talk about the very fascinating Chris Cairns trial. Patrick is going to talk about the day he spent at the Matador Cup. And we're also going to discuss Warnie and Tendulkar's business venture of T20 cricket in the United States.
Okay, in part one today, we're going to talk about the Chris Cairns trial. Paul, you've been following this very closely. What's been happening?
Well, it's a fascinating trial, and it's a really serious trial because he faces up to 7 years in jail if he's found guilty. He's charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice and also with perjury. Now, you kind of forget what a good cricketer Chris Cairns was. I saw him play in a match that lives in my mind at the SCG, where I turned up after work and was regretting that I'd gone because Australia had the match won. Cairns came out and belted about 6 sixes, much like his dad had done many years before, and it made the night worthwhile. And you thought, geez, this is a really good cricketer, and his record is better than I might have thought. His record is not too dissimilar to that of Ian Botham's. They have almost the exact same batting average of 33.5 in Test cricket, and Botham's bowling average of 28.4 is slightly better than Cairns' 29.4, and obviously Botham played more Test matches as well. But he's a very serious cricketer, and he's in very serious trouble.
So take us back to when the allegations are alleged to have happened, and this is 2008?
Yeah, he was playing in the Indian Cricket League, which is a league that vanished almost as soon as it had started, and the Indian Premier League was its replacement and more. But he was there towards the end of his career. He'd been battling injuries, and the allegation is that he just started fixing matches. That there were bookmakers who were working many players over there, and that Cairns decided that he deserved his cut of the pie.
It was a bit of a low-key hit-and-giggle style tournament, which is sort of ripe for the bookmakers of the mid-2000s.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was playing for the Chandigarh Lions, and he was inducing others to fix matches as well, and he himself was deliberately underperforming, so the allegations go.
And there's one particular player that is alleged to have been involved very closely in the team at that time, another New Zealand player.
Yeah, Lou Vincent, who was a tragic figure even then. He was suffering from alcoholism and depression, and he'd been dropped from the New Zealand side, and he'd found a sort of a last gasp opportunity to play cricket here, and he came under Chris Cairns' influence, and at Chris Cairns' instigation, he engaged in several instances of match fixing, and this is not up for question. He admits this, and he has been banned from cricket for life, and has now become kind of the chief witness for the prosecution.
And what sort of stuff is Lou Vincent saying that he did that Chris Cairns influenced him to do?
Well, he was usually given a target that he had to get between around about 15 or 20 runs in a given innings and no more. So presumably that was indicative of spread betting that was occurring. And he'd get those runs and get out, and then the bookmakers, who'd obviously taken the position that would be in favour of that, then would have a huge collect. Although poor old Lou Vincent, at one time he failed to get out and actually exceeded the target, and they all lost money, and alleges that at one point Chris Cairns got so furious at him he chased after him with a cricket bat.
So that sort of intimidation of other players is actually quite central to the allegations that are going on at the moment.
Well, yeah, that he was doing that, and that he was also trying to induce others to get involved in it. And the real bombshell is that Brendan McCullum, the current captain of New Zealand and a man of, I think, unimpeachable integrity, is going to allege that Chris Cairns twice tried to induce him to get involved in it as well, and that McCullum turned him down but failed to report this to authorities for several years, something that he deeply regrets, mainly because Cairns was such an idol of his and he was just so shocked by it all. But it's going to be a very, very comprehensive accusation that that's what Cairns did.
And one of the reasons this actually first came to light is that it's almost a bit of an own goal for Chris Cairns, because isn't he the one that actually set this course in motion because he was offended by a tweet?
Yeah, well, I was unaware of any of this back at the time. Those who had been aware that Chris Cairns' time at the Chandigarh Lions had come to an end would have only been aware that there was he'd had an ankle injury and he parted ways with the team. And then all of a sudden, when the IPL began in January 2010, Lalit Modi, who was the IPL chairman, suddenly sent a tweet that said Chris Cairns removed from IPL auction list due to his past record of match fixing. So this was a huge allegation to make, and Cairns took Lalit Modi to court, sued him in England, and won. And Lalit Modi had to pay Cairns £1.4 million in damages and costs. So yeah, definitely Chris Cairns set this in motion. But subsequent to that is when Lou Vincent has admitted it all, and all these other allegations have come out. And so the issue is that in asserting in court that he'd never cheated in cricket, Cairns was making an oath to that effect. And if it turns out that that was a lie, he's lied under oath, and hence the perjury charge. So that's where things are at the moment.
Indian Cricket League, I'm just having a look through some of the teams here to stir your memory. Mumbai Champs, Chennai Superstars, the Chandigarh Lions, that's the team that Lou and Chris Cairns played for. Hyderabad Heroes, the Royal Bengal Tigers out of Kolkata, the Delhi Giants, Ahmedabad Rockets, Lahore Badshahs, and the Dakar Warriors. So none of those teams survived to make it into the IPL or exist in any form today.
Oh, they just run off the tongue, don't they? They're just a marvellously important list of teams. And I think to give you an example of the quality of cricket that was played, Chris Harris is going to allege that at one point Chris Cairns hit a ridiculously simple catch to mid-off, which mid-off proceeded to drop. So the implication is that both teams were trying to fix the match. Cairns was too clever though, and their next ball went on a suicide run and got himself run out. And so, you know, he's done a good job. But then the sad thing is that the wicketkeeper who came out to bat next seemed like he was unaware of what was occurring and played a brilliant match-winning innings. And apparently you could see the fire and fury in Chris Cairns' eyes that his own side had won the match. So, you know, it's not looking all that good for him, I must say.
I always feel that when honest players spoil the plans of the corrupt players in cricket because they don't fix the whole team, I always feel that's justice is being done in a small way.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, I hope that this guy knew it was happening and decided to take action into his own hands. Now, the thing that Chris Cairns is going to allege is that Lou Vincent is a wreck and that he's been banned from cricket for life and he's just doing anything to, you know, he's a scattergun. But that may have some resonance if it weren't for the fact that at the time of the initial libel case, the one that Cairns won, Cairns' legal advisor, a guy by the name of Andrew Fitch Holland, had tried to get Lou Vincent not just to remain silent, but to actually send out a statement confirming that nothing untoward had occurred. Vincent declined, and he then got another call from him on Skype and decided to tape this one. And on the court has already heard that tape, part of which Chris Cairns' legal advisor says to Lou Vincent, "Between you and I, we all know some of what is being said is clearly true." So when you've got that, plus Brendan McCullum's testimony, plus the testimony of others that is going to be made as well, you know, who knows? He's entitled to the presumption of innocence, but it's not looking good for him.
Just looking at Lou Vincent's record, 23 tests for New Zealand between 2001 and 2007, averaged 34, so a slightly better average than Chris Cairns. Top scored 224, scored a century on debut over at the Wacker. His life is now just a total mess, my understanding.
It is, and you know, there is the direction that you're kind of feeling that Chris Cairns' life is going to head as well. Part of the reason I'm so fascinated is, but I've seen him interviewed about this in the past, and he's such a strong character. He's so intimidating that the interviewers have been too scared to ask him the questions that need to be asked. And even now, he strides into court each day wearing an expensive suit. He's 6'5". He's in his mid-40s, but he looks younger than that. He just looks a figure of a serious human being. He apparently sits in court, bolt upright, unmoved the entire day. And you just got to wonder what is going on in his mind, because he must know that there's every chance that he's going to turn up to this courtroom in a couple of weeks' time and to be led out of it through the prison cells to jail, to dishonour, to having to pay back Lalit Modi probably £1.4 million plus extra damages beyond that. So not only jail, but financial ruination, and without the means to pay it back, because cricket will probably ban him for life. He won't be able to commentate, he won't be able to coach, he'll be a figure of disgrace, just like Lou Vincent is. And even though I think that if he does get found guilty, he'll deserve everything that comes his way, I can kind of understand where he's coming from. You know, I've had a great career, I probably haven't made as much money as I look at all the Indians and Australians who've made. I'm playing in this tournament that no one cares about, everyone's on the take. It's my superannuation package, I deserve a bit of money. It's wrong, but I can't help have a tiny bit of sympathy for him.
The trial continues, Paul?
That's, as they say, the trial continues and may last till as far as the 20th of November. Right, part two, we're going to talk about the Matador Barbecues Cup, the Australian domestic one-day tournament. And Patrick, you went along to the North Sydney Oval on Thursday to watch New South Wales and South Australia. How did you find the day?
Oh, it was a fascinating day out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wasn't actually planning to go, but I live quite close to North Sydney Oval, and I was going for a walk. And as I was getting to North Sydney Oval, it was about the 40th over, and Steve Smith was on 70. And so I thought, happy hour, Australian captain, on a very small ground. I'll go in and watch him plough 100 off the last 10 overs. And the very first ball, after I paid my $10 to get in, he got out. So I took my stand to see the tail end for New South Wales plug the ball around the field to finish on 266. And it was a really strange day. I had so much nostalgia for cricket while at North Sydney Oval, because the first time I went to North Sydney Oval to watch New South Wales play was 1997, and that was the Mercantile Mutual Cup. And one of the many iterations, and I went back and I've got the names here. We've got Vehicle and General Australasian Knockout Comp, Coca-Cola, Gillette Cup, McDonald's Cup, FAI Cup, ING Cup, Ford Ranger Cup, Ryobi One Day Cup, and now the Matador Barbecues One Day Cup, which is... the competition has changed a lot. It used to be played on weekends, and now the whole tournament is being played on suburban Sydney grounds until the 25th of October over about 3 to 4 week period. And the 6 states plus Cricket Australia Development 11 is playing, and 21 league matches, so round robin, and then 2 versus 3 knockout final to play the highest ranked team at North Sydney Oval in the final. And look, it's an eminently watchable tournament, because the cancellation of the Bangladesh tour means all the Australian players are playing. And so when I walked into North Sydney Oval and Steve Smith got out, he walked into it wasn't a dressing room, it was just a marquee set up on the sideline, and you could actually just go up and talk to the players. And there was Mitchell Starc, Shane Watson, Nathan Lyon, Steve Smith, all these great Australian cricketers just standing on the sideline in a stadium with 300 to 400 people there. Yeah, it's an amazing drop in stature of the tournament. It used to be, I remember when it was the McDonald's Cup when I was a kid, and it would be on Channel 9 unexpectedly in October. There'd be a decent crowd there. It'd be Richie Benaud hosting it, and it was, it was pretty big time. And it still is, as you said, in terms of the players. Those same players, come the Boxing Day Test match, will be playing in front of a crowd of 60 or 70,000 people. They're here ready to watch for $10, and no one turns up. Well, it was every Saturday and Sunday you would watch. This is back during the 90s. You'd watch, Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, West Australia. They'd be playing at the Test ground. Yep. There would be fairly decent crowds, and especially if the Test players were playing. And you'd have the full Channel 9 commentary team commentating it across the whole day. It was something that after 8 months of football, it was a bit barren. You were looking forward to cricket starting. It filled a hole, and now I feel as though it's still watchable cricket, but it's just its place in our national psyche has just dropped to a level of insignificance that's remarkable. Well, I was reading on Twitter how the English version of this had its final at Lord's the other day, and they were expecting near to a full house, and there was genuine enthusiasm on Twitter about it. And Melinda Farrell, I think, tweeted out that the same game in Australia the previous summer at the SCG had a crowd of 2,000, to which my thought was, geez, that seems like a high. I would have thought it was 20, given the way the tournament has degraded. Well, the New South Wales team is incredibly strong. It's virtually an Australian side, so I'd be very shocked if they don't make the final. But there is the potential for 2 interstate teams to play their final at North Sydney Oval on the 25th of October. Is it North Sydney Oval, the final? The final is at North Sydney Oval. They're $10, by the way, so if you are in Sydney, if you're near Hurstville, Blacktown, Drummoyne, North Sydney, or there's one other ground,
Bankstown?
Bankstown. If you're near any of those grounds, it's worth going along to check out a match. So the match I went to, New South Wales 266 for 9, Steve Smith 72, and South Australia in their chase. Now North Sydney Oval 266 is a very small target. It's really, if you hit the ball on the up, it will go for 6. It's Mark Taylor. He famously says 100 times in commentary at North Sydney Oval that it's either a boundary or a 4 every time you hit the ball. So I would have put South Australia as very strong favourites, but Mitchell Starc with a white ball is virtually unplayable. He took 4 for 27, and South Australia just skittled for 110.
Didn't New South Wales got 2 bonus points, was it?
Yeah, so I must admit, bonus points in cricket frustrate me. I think you should just
I
you should
agree.
just win.
That frustrates Steve Orr as well.
They and also Michael Checker for rugby union fans out there. But for me, it brought back so many incredible memories going to North Sydney Oval, because I used to watch the Bears play there when I was a kid growing up, and I used to go to cricket games, and I used to think it was such a huge, expansive ground with a hill and the stands, and it just felt so small and so provincial. For me, it was just shocking that you could be in this place that was desolate. There was nobody there except your heroes.
And sorry, just the one saving grace of the tournament is that it's now back on Gem, which is Channel 9's secondary station. In the last few years when it was on Foxtel, they treated the tournament with absolute love. Every game was shown in very good quality, but no one watched it. Now, because of this strange situation in Australia where free-to-air TV is still king, it gets somewhat decent ratings, because there are people who don't have pay TV flicking through the stations, seeing some sport on, and actually watching it.
Yeah, and it's on Gem. It's also, some games are also being shown on the Cricket Australia website. So Cricket Australia, I think it's cricket.com.au. You can watch some live streaming. They've got all the scorecards there. Another interesting point about this year is that they've got the Cricket Australia 11 is playing in it, which is a developmental squad, and they didn't start too well in that they only got 59 and 79 in their first 2 games against New South Wales and Victoria, but against Tasmania they managed to put together a very good score of 250. It brings back memories of the Canberra Comets, Paul.
Yeah, well, memory maybe. I remember Merv Hughes, and I remember Mike Valletta. Although you might not actually know this because you're a little bit younger than me, Patrick, but did you know the other team that's famously been in this tournament in its earlier iterations?
I have a sneaking suspicion that New Zealand may have played at one stage.
The New Zealand national side. The New Zealand national side was in the competition, which they should possibly bring that back with the North and South Island side, but maybe they wouldn't want to spend their 3 weeks at Hurstville Oval.
241 for 7 Cricket Australia 11 scored against Tasmania, and a fella named Marcus Harris scored very well. He scored 84 off 94, including 10 fours. So a name to watch for the future. That's a very good comeback after the very low scores against New South Wales and Victoria, and perhaps says more about the team that Tasmania has sent up to Sydney, presumably to stay in a suburban hotel for the next 3 weeks.
Maybe, but I think that they copped a lot of criticism of Cricket Australia for having this side in there, as though it really mattered that they were getting bowled out for 40 and 70, as though this was cheapening the brand, and the world of cricket was saying, what's going on? No one in the world of cricket is aware that this tournament is on. I think you might as well give these guys a go, and if they get rolled for nothing, then so be it. But scoring 240, I reckon that's a pretty good effort, and some of the stars of the future may get valuable experience out of this.
The whole purpose of this tournament is something that people have been discussing. You've seen people saying on Twitter and Facebook, why even bother if you're going to reduce it to such a carnival in suburban Sydney grounds? Paul, I know you've got a theory about why Cricket Australia persists.
Oh, I think they just have to. That we need players to step up into the national side to play 50-over cricket, and if at state level all they're playing is 4-day cricket and the Big Bash, then that's not appropriate. And the Sheffield Shield has been running at a loss probably for 70 years, yet it's still treated with great love. It's played in the main venues, and no one turns up, and no one expects anyone to turn up. But it's always stated that outside of Test cricket, and probably including some Test cricket, it's the hardest competition that there is. Well, this is probably pretty similar, and I think it makes a good idea. Save costs, make it as cheap as you can, play it all in Sydney where the weather's usually fairly good, get it over and done with, and get all these players valuable experience, and through, as I said, a little bit of exposure on Gem, it provides some sort of introduction to the cricket season for television.
Now, when we were growing up watching the Mercantile Mutual Cup, and listeners in the same age bracket as us, in their 30s, will remember that one of the key features of the Mercantile Mutual Cup was that there was a hit the sign competition.
That was awesome.
And signs were placed around the boundary, and if you hit the ball on the full, so a 6 that hit it on the full, you won a share of money towards the team. I think it was going up by $5,000 a match.
Might have even been 10. I think it started at 10 and went up by 10s.
And I think it was hit once. I think Steve Waugh hit it once.
Steve Waugh hit it once and I think got $140,000. No, it was definitely hit more than once though. Might have been hit a couple of times after that.
Here.
It might have been Gilchrist might have hit one. Or he went very close. But it was certainly hit 2 or 3 times, but the first one was the main one because up until then, $140,000 in 1994 just seemed like it's a big amount of money now, but it seemed an amazing amount of money, and to be able to get it in one shot was pretty cool.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that has been brought back this year. Matador, the Matador Cups is what the tournament's called. Matador is the house barbecue brand at Bunnings, and so at each ground, on the hill, they've set up a Matador barbecue to sell sausage sizzles to the people that go to the game, the few hundred that are there. And on top of the marquee over the barbecue, they have painted a target. And if a batsman hits that target on the full, and I'm being serious here, they will give away free sausages equal to the player's score after hitting the 6.
Wow.
So if he gets off the mark by hitting a 6 into the target, Matador give away 6 sausages to the first 6 people that get up to the barbecue.
And what does the player get?
Well, if he runs quickly, he might get one of those sausages, Paul.
So if we just say $140,000 in 1994 money is probably worth about $500,000 now. So is that an indication of where the tournament's gone? That it's the player in 94 got $500,000 in modern day dollars, and now he gets to watch other people eating sausages?
Well, I'll also say that they're parsimonious though they're being. They're also not being very generous with the placement of the barbecue, because at North Sydney Oval, it was it was placed in a position that 6s aren't normally hit. It was like it would have to take a sliced cut off the back foot in order for the ball to travel. And it was placed right at the back of the hill. Like, North Sydney Oval's a small ground, but they really chose the one place where it is least likely a 6 is going to go to.
That's fantastic. I think I might have to go to one of these games. It'd be quite good.
Well, as I say, all around Sydney until 25th of October. Tickets are only $10, $5 for kids. Look, personally, if you're a cricket tragic like I am, you'll go there and have a very enjoyable day. Part 3 today, we're looking at Shane Warne and Sachin Tendulkar's intriguing series in America. I don't actually know that much about it, but Paul, again, you've been following this very closely. So tell me, what's going on?
Well, it's going to be 3 T20 matches that are going to involve recently retired superstars and superstars who are maybe not quite so recently retired. We're going back as far as someone like Courtney Walsh is actually going to be involved. So, but you certainly can't fault them in terms of the star power. Whether the Americans are aware of this star power remains to be seen. But I would certainly be finding it something that I'd be entertained by. The 3 matches are going to be played in 3 very storied baseball stadiums. It's going to be at Citi Field in New York, which I thought I hadn't heard of, but I think that's just Shea Stadium.
Yeah, home of the Mets?
Yeah, the home of the Mets. The home of the Dodgers, Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, and also another stadium that is probably a little bit better than its name is, at Minute Maid Field, which is the home of the Houston Astros. And
in addition to the 52-year-old Courtney Walsh, who else is going to be playing in this match?
Okay, well, we've got from India, Tendulkar. That's pretty good. You know, he's still going to be pretty young.
I heard he was all right.
Ganguly and Laxman. And of course, Ajit Agarkar is playing.
There's a blast from the past.
Ajit Agarkar famously last night has said on in Indian press that MS Dhoni doesn't deserve his place in the Indian one-day side anymore. You know, you'd hardly like to make a comparison and say, well, maybe Ajit, you don't deserve your place in this cast of luminaries, because he is the standout, I think, of all of the players.
He's the least starry.
Absolutely. I'm going to take the Australians: Shane Warne, Ricky Ponting, you've heard of him, Matthew Hayden, Glenn McGrath, and Brad Haddin. So you've got some recently retired. And Brad Haddin will, absolutely at the top of his game. Then we've got from South Africa, Callis, Sean Pollock, Klusner, Jonty Rhodes, and Alan Donald.
Lance Klusner played the tournament, 99 World Cup.
Yeah, it's only 16 years ago.
From England. This is a good name, this one.
Graham Swan and Michael Vaughan. Michael Vaughan, yeah, he's not the youngest. West Indies, Brian Lara, Courtney Walsh, and Curtly Ambrose. I mean, Ambrose looks fit still.
I reckon that's pretty A-list. If you're going to choose three West Indians, they're the three you'd want.
Well, someone said, what about Viv? And Warren pointed out he's 63. And I think they didn't have that to say, well, so. Sri Lanka, well, here's two players that you might have heard of, Kumar Sangakkara and Murali.
Well, I think it's fair to say that that's the best batsman, the best bowler that Sri Lanka's produced.
Yeah, you could argue that, some people would argue it's the second best batsman and the best bowler the world's ever produced. But anyway, then we've got from Pakistan, Wasim Akram, Shoaib Akhtar, Saklang Mushtaq, and probably Ajit Agarkar's rival, Moin Khan.
I have to say that I'm very surprised that Shahid Afridi hasn't put his hand up for this tournament. It seems right up his alley.
I think he's too young, isn't he? He's only 23.
And, I mean, you go through those names and you go through those great stadia, and, you know, cricket in America, it's obviously, it's not the national pastime, that's baseball. It's probably a sport that they've heard of but think of a very slow version of baseball. What's sort of the goal of this? Is it to educate them or get America playing cricket?
I think initially it's to take advantage of the fact that there are, I think it's something like 4 million people who live in America from the Indian subcontinent, and they tend to be quite an affluent group. They've gone over there for reasons to further their career. They've got some money, so you could imagine a guy who's been over there for 30 years, has followed cricket from afar, has never even seen Sachin Tendulkar. So for him, he'd probably just happily turn up and watch Sachin Tendulkar do anything. I recently went, they had Federer playing Hewitt in an exhibition match here in Australia, and I went simply to say that I could say I'd seen Roger Federer. It turned out to be a spectacle of a fantastic spectacle. That was very much a bonus for me. I think some of them will be feeling the same way.
Now, in the Australian press, I've seen headlines that suggest that not all former players are as on board with this tournament as Shane Warne is.
Well, the thing is that Shane Warne has always been able to count on one man for support, and that is Ian Chappell. That Shane Warne and Ian Chappell are identical in every opinion they've ever had on anything. So you think that... the other thing that obviously this tournament is trying to achieve is for Warne to make a quid out of it. So
Warne and Tendulkar are also the promoters of this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and the ticket prices, they're not cheap. They range from $50 up to $175.
That's US dollars.
It's US dollars, and most of the tickets are in that higher bracket. One of the stadiums, they've even got a special ticket for $325. So they're certainly not giving them away. And so I think that for Shane Warne to suddenly hear his greatest supporter, Ian Chappell, to say that he thinks it's a bad idea. I've always thought that the reason for retiring is you wanted to stop playing, and then he's added, I wouldn't shell out money to go and watch them play. I certainly wouldn't turn on the television to watch them play. But if there are people silly enough to give them a lot of money to play as an ageing cricketer, well, what do they say? A fool and his money are soon parted. So Warnie's response to that is not all that...
It's a bit harsh, I think, for Chaps to say that. Warne, this is reporting by ESPN Cricinfo. Chaps has been one of the biggest influences on my career, so it's disappointing to hear that. I would have thought that he would have seen the bigger picture about spreading the game of cricket globally, and that actually we're doing a good thing if we make sure these games are fun and entertaining. Well, you always know when a cricketer is referring to another cricketer by their nickname, that there's an undercurrent of animosity in there.
Well, the thing that Warnie doesn't understand is that Chappelli doesn't have loyalty to him. Chappelli just has a few rules that he lives his life by. That, the best batsman should always be at number 3. That you should always be good at playing the hook shot. That batsmen should bat and bowlers should bowl, which is why he hates pinch hitters, because that's a bowler coming in front of a batsman, and it breaks his rule.
The other problem is that batsmen should always know their place in the lineup.
Oh, absolutely. And now I've also discovered that he's got another rule, and that is when you retire, you stop playing cricket. And, Warnie, how'd you not know that, Warnie?
And when are these games being played in America? So we can organise our trips over there.
They're being played in the beautiful balmy month of November, which... Again, I don't want to be cynical because they've got no choice. Baseball obviously takes up all of the good weather. And November in America, in those parts of America, Los Angeles will be fine. And I think Houston will probably be okay. But
yeah.
New York, Warnie said that they've looked at the recent data. 1 November it was 20 degrees around the time they were playing. The year before it was snowing. So could be a bit dodgy. But you notice on their website, it says rain or shine they're going to play. So presumably they've got no worries about... the pitch not being in good condition for the future because it's going to be a one-off event. So it'd be interesting if they played through driving rain and snow.
And question on the spot for you here. Do you know how people are going to be able to watch this on TV?
Well, it's going to be broadcast. Whether it's going to be on in Australia or not, I'm not sure. But they've said that Alan Border is going to be doing some commentary, as is Navjot Sidhu, who's currently in hospital. So if he gets out of hospital, he'll be commentating, and Alan Wilkins as well. Not sure exactly where, but you'd think that they'd get a fair degree of money selling the rights to this to India. I mean, I'd be interested in watching it, certainly if it was on Australian TV. The one thing I'll say in terms of the spectacle is that I think it's lacking some fast bowling. That all of those batsmen that we named, they'll be pretty good still. And the bowlers, the spin bowlers will still be good. I think the fast bowlers in Ambrose and Walsh will still be very accurate and still be very decent bowlers. Where's Brett Lee? That's the guy that they should have got. You know, someone to really. One of the great spectacles of cricket is to see someone charging in and really.
On such short notice, it'd be hard to fit it into his acting and singing schedule, Paul, and maybe that might have been the problem.
That's true. But look, I totally disagree with Ian Chappell. I think that the US Cricket Association is apparently quite dysfunctional. They've been suspended by the ICC. Peter Della Penna on Twitter, who is an American who's fallen in love with cricket, who does some great reporting, has mentioned the fact that the US cricket website hasn't been updated for the last 40 days. So you'd think if ever there was any update you could possibly mention, the fact that Sachin Tendulkar and Shane Warne are coming to the United States, that could possibly have been done. It hasn't been. So someone's got to do something. Cricket in America should be bigger than it is. It's never going to be their national game or anything like it. But it should be at least the size of rugby union, which is kind of spreads around the country in a minor way. I think that when you said that most Americans are aware of cricket and think it's a slow version of baseball, I think honestly it's a cliche. A lot of them think of it as the insect, and that's all. Quick correction, I said that Citi Field was Shea Stadium. It's not actually. Shea Stadium has been discontinued. Citi Field is its replacement, but it is where the Mets play. That's the end of episode 1 of Bat and Ball with Pat and Paul. Hope you enjoyed it. You can catch up with me at _summer_game and Patrick at Patrick Avenel on Twitter. And hope you'll tune in to next week's episode as well.